We're at Concordia Summit, and I'm here with Carlos Dominguez. He is the Senior Vice President in Cisco Systems Office of the Chairman of the Board and CEO.
Big title, huh?
Huge.
It's a
That's
mouthful.
A really, really long title.
You should see my business card. It's about this big.
Thank you so much for being here with me.
Pleasure to be here.
So, public-private partnerships.
Yes.
And this is what Concordia Summit's theme is all about. And you've been at Cisco now for 21 years.
Yeah.
How has the technological developments really changed the face of P3s, if you will? Because you've seen so many, things change over the years.
Well, I mean, we don't have to look very far to see this world in which we're living in, which is radically different than the world I grew up in. And I kind of remind people that the internet, mobile technologies, and social media are all a quarter century old.
So new,
right?
Yeah.
And now we rely on, my wife who's a Luddite, doesn't use technology at all. Now she can't depart from her phone.
Wow.
So we've seen things change radically. The thing on that I try reminding people is that we humans and society in general are really resistant to change. So as we approach problems, and particularly around employment of the youth and doing that kind of stuff, the really creative ideas that push the boundaries are normally squelched. And they're squelched because they're so radically different in the way we approach things. And what we need to make sure that we're doing is that we're allowing, through experimentation, a lot of these to take place. And frankly, and to solve these problems, it can't be done with the P3 as you're referring to.
Yes.
And they've definitely changed immensely over the years.
Right. And so, as SVP in the Office of the Chairman of the Board and the CEO,
try saying that 3 times.
Oh my God, I can't. What is you're charged with in terms of your role and responsibility in innovating the company?
So it's a really interesting role, and it's been evolving over time. But I'm primarily a spokesperson for the company, externally representing our company and representing John. And what that has afforded me is really a view of the world that is quite unique. I mean, I get to be with very big thinkers and get to see technology that many people don't. And to be real truthful is my perspective of the world has shifted so much. And on one hand, I am so optimistic that I think we have at our disposal an opportunity to solve any problem that we want. And the technological innovation is going to be incredible. And on the other hand, I'm scared to death that, what are all these transitions going to do? And the thing that I fear the most is that since the beginning of time, and I'm not going to throw you under the bus, my generation, which are the age now that supposedly we have the wisdom, are not using all the technological tools and innovations that exist.
Right.
And these kids are growing up with these tools that are nuclear powered. And my question is, how are we going to guide them? Yeah. How are we going to show them right from wrong and the ethical sides of these technologies if our generation, which are the older and the wiser, are not using it?
Very resilient often.
Very resilient.
Yeah.
So there's
intergenerational gap. It's a really, I never even thought of that perspective.
Well, it's a big one, and frankly, the other thing I do a lot besides talking is trying to drive and increasing the innovation DNA inside our company, and
bringing the outside in many ways.
The best practices. How do we build a company of innovators?
Right.
Which is not an easy thing to do, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. So, and innovation, I mean, is such one of my favorite topics, as I mentioned earlier.
Too.
And you are quite an expert on that.
That's a big word.
Yes, it's a really, really big word. Actually, at Cisco, does it cross over with social good and cause and sustainability? Yeah. It's sort of innovating as a company on how to use technology to change and improve the world, but also doing good. Youth, obviously investing in your youth and innovation. Is there, in terms of Cisco's work, what kind of initiatives do you have right now that are impacting the youth, and so that we're getting more of them, more youth in jobs around the world and so on? So
yeah, you actually asked me 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah.
So let me try.
Okay. Yes, please.
Let me try to break them down in an area that I can kind of help us consume them. So the first one is this notion of corporate social responsibility. Is it good? Should you do it? Why should you do it? And at the core of everything, and this is what I try to tell everyone, is there's some sort of driver in every company that you want to do something. And I'll give you one example. In 1997, the internet was growing exponentially. And what Cisco does is we build the pipes and the backdrop and the infrastructure to make the internet run. You know, they're probably the biggest piece of it. So without us,
you forget that needs to exist.
Yeah, we're plumbers.
You're
but
empowering everything, right?
Very powerful and profitable plumbers. But,
plumbers, I like that.
But the whole notion is, if you think of the growth, the ability to design, build, and manage these networks, there weren't enough people. So in '97, we're faced with a problem. How do we scale? So if we went down the traditional road, which is, okay, we have this curriculum we can develop and teach people, and we're going to put it through a traditional methodology of university, or trying to teach it that way, you do the math with teachers, there's no way we're going to have enough teachers to be able to scale. So we had to look at it through a different sort of way, an innovative sort of way. So what we ended up doing in '97, which was very crazy at the time, is we did computer-based learning. We did instructor-led computer-based learning, and what that ended up doing, it set a standard.
Like the webinar model in a way.
Webinar, but really computer, interactive, you know, engaging. And what it really ended up doing was it transformed how we educated, and the teacher that was still there, because it's still leader-led but delivered through computers, their role was not so much about delivering the curriculum, but identifying the students that needed help and engaging with them, because we don't want to displace that human touch. But it's so much simpler if I've got an assessment tool that's not only teaching, assessing the students, that I can come back and say, Carlos, student number XYZ is failing 1, 2, 3 in these areas, help them, and here's some recommended curriculum to work with them on. You know, it changes the whole model. From there, we moved to deploying games. Why should learning be boring, right? So we gamified curriculum on entrepreneurship and other soft skills that were needed. And then the third part that I thought was way cool was building communities for them to interact and for them to share. And
so
you know, in '97, it was really innovative, and through that time, today we have 10,000 academies in 165 countries. There's currently 1.2 million students enrolled. We've graduated 4 million students. So this is scale, right?
And the technology that the curriculum that you're teaching, you know, is it just spans across, you know, everything from how to use?
It's how to design, build, manage, you know, networks, and it's these skills. And by the way, it's a very well-respected certification program. There's 3 levels to them, and at the highest level, you know, most of the students are making $250,000 as soon as they get out of the third level. It's amazing. It's an amazing program.
Yeah. So I mean, that's really, so that sort of ties into the youth question. Is
tremendously.
You know, you're really helping, you're scaling that knowledge and giving them this huge educational platform.
But you know, it almost goes beyond that. Youth could be a primary recipient of what we're doing. But I was recently reading in Illinois, our oldest student is 88 years old.
Oh, wow.
Out of Illinois, and he was having a problem with his computer, couldn't get anybody to fix it, decided to enroll in a community college. That led to saying, let me do networking, and he got his certification at the age of 88. God bless him, you know?
I know, what a great story. I love that. And you know, earlier, you know, the panel you talked about, you know, often people are resistant. I mean, since we're talking about innovation and all these great ideas, gaming, and you know, which was crazy in 1997, and you know, you mentioned something that, you know, you can't think about what it means today. You have to think about it what it means tomorrow, and people are usually so used to doing things the way they are and breaking away from that traditional system. So, what is, you know, fundamental, you know, values that you believe, you know, that will make innovation successful at a company, you know, like.
Oh gosh, that first of all, it's a really fantastic question.
Right, and you're writing a book, right, that talks about this topic, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things, and I think you have to be realistic and understand that change is hard. I read an interesting stat that blows my mind, and the stat is only 20% of the people change the way they eat, exercise regularly, and stop smoking after a severe heart attack when their life depends on it. So 80% of the world that has had a severe heart attack don't adapt the behaviors that will make them live longer.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't change when death is at your door, you know, you're not going to change when I come into you and says, well, you know, we used to do things this way, now we're going to do it that way. Yeah. So, you know, that's something really important to understand. And one of the things that I think about is companies need to experiment a lot more. And we tend to look at problems in very big ways, and they shouldn't be looked at. We have to look at them in consumable bites, try something, and if it fails, it's okay.
Yes.
One of the great examples, a good friend of mine, Peter Sims, who wrote a book called Little Bets, he tells a story of Chris Rock coming into a nightclub, and he's there with a notepad, and he's trialing this joke, and he's crossing it out, and he's trialing this other ones. And what you fail to recognize is that someone like Chris Rock experiments for 12 months in small venues, experimenting with his jokes before he has an HBO special.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the thinking. If you're inside a company, how do you take it where it's okay to fail, try things in a very short and small sort of way that ultimately evolutionary leads to something that might be very big?
Yeah. And that's, in a way, a mentality that entrepreneurs need to have all the time, right? Because you're always taking risk, and you're always, in order to even create something that is going to disrupt anything, it's really got to be something that hasn't been done before, which is...
But they're good at that. They're good at adjusting and evolving, and what ends up happening is, our success. A.G. Lafley, from the CEO of P&G, I interviewed him recently and asked him a question. I said, what do you kind of worry about the most? And it took him a long time to respond, but he was very thoughtful. And he said to me, the thing I worry about the most is that my 40 plus years of experience and success in the consumer packaged good industry is going to make me see new problems in the new world in an old way.
Ooh.
Profound.
Yes, very.
Right? And that says to me, if you're in a large company where you've had a tremendous amount of success, we do pattern recognition. Here's a problem. Oh, we've seen that before. Here's a solution. You almost have to take a step back and say, wait a minute, is it the same problem really? Has the environment changed? Is the environment, totally different? And approach it in a much more cautious sort of way.
Yeah, absolutely. So you must just have the best job, because your job is to be out there looking at, experiencing different meeting thought leaders and going to conferences like this, and then bringing those ideas inside the company. So they have to listen to you when you have ideas, right?
Well, they never have to. You try to persuade, but I do have the best job. I work for an incredible company, a great boss.
That's great. And then just, again, public-private partnerships, just to touch on that, in terms of successful partnerships that Cisco has had, any case studies that you want to share, or what the ingredients then that make for a really successful one?
It's really simple. I mean, people overcomplicate things, and I find in life that the simpler you keep things, the easier it becomes. And the first thing is being open and honest. Every relationship, even marriage,
open and honest.
You have challenges that you have to deal with, and open communications and honest communication is very, very important. The second thing is really focus on outcomes. Everyone talks about we're going to do this, and I always say, well, what's the outcome? What's the outcome we're desiring? Number 3 is be open to new ideas. We have found that sometimes we come in with an idea that is not fit for the environment. Fourth is pay attention to localization and local issues. Every culture is different. Everything is different. And number 5, it takes really a village to be successful. Our partnerships, if you think of the networking academies, in some cases, we've gone in through a major university. In other cases, we've gone through a small college. In other cases, we've been in a high school. In another case, we've been in a prison that has wanted to kind of offer this for prisoners. We've been in every case with mayors and government leaders. We've been with everyone, and in every model is a different situation.
It's customized. Region.
And the whole notion is you have to be open to partnerships, and if you treat them the way you want to be treated, you're outcome focused. Life isn't that complicated.
No, absolutely. Wonderful. And I have to ask about the book that you're coming out with, the Tech Nowist Manifesto.
Oh my God, you've been doing your research. So
I like Nowist. That's a
with our Asian roots.
You got to,
I didn't go that far from it.
Way to represent.
what I did, I never, anybody that knows me knows I have the attention span of a 5-year-old, so no one would ever think that I'd write a book. But what ended up happening, the job that I do, and doing over 90 keynotes a year, I'm finding that a lot of people are actually not remaining relevant with the technologies that are there in a very scary sort of way. Maybe they're obsolete or becoming obsolete at an ever-increasing rate. So the whole notion was, how do I create some sort of process, belief system, and a set of actions that help people remain relevant and truly more than anything else to leverage what's available. So the whole purpose of technoism or becoming a technoist is really being open to change and becoming adaptable, spending time researching and discovering the things that are available through peer networking, through your own research, through reading. And I always tell someone, if there are 5 million people using something, there must be something there. So figure out and discover what it is. Then experimenting with it, measuring whether it's something you want to introduce into your life. And if you do introduce it, how do you teach others about it? Right? And if you do all of these things, not only do you remain relevant, but somehow I think your personal net worth will go up by showing others.
Yeah, because technology is going to continue to change and evolve so quickly.
Hold on.
Yeah, so you're building these like fundamental values.
Hold on.
To hold on and adapt well to it. No, I love that. I know I'm between even social media today. Instagram, Facebook, social, Twitter. It's just
you got to understand them.
God, and and there's new ones keep on popping up.
What's really quite interesting is, and this is kind of one of the things I discovered in doing the research for the book, is just like, we don't change when, you have to for health reasons. We tend to have reasons and excuses for all the things we don't do. We can justify anything. We're very smart, right? So one of the things that I discovered in polling people is when I ask people who's using, this is a simple example, Twitter. I'd get a lot of people my age always give me reasons. It's I don't want to read what someone had for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I don't know what to say.
They all put it down.
Well,
for sure.
They argue with all their might as to why
they roll their eyes.
Yeah, they roll their eyes. And this one individual, and this was really the inspiration of the book. After this individual, who's a very high-level person, argued with me for a long time why he's not using it, I turned around and said, well, how long did it take you when you came to that conclusion? His reply was, well, I've never used it. I'm like,
yeah.
So we got to get our hands dirty.
Yeah, and I think what happens is it evolves so quickly that people become intimidated, by it, and then they become, against it in many ways. And I think that sometimes it comes from insecurity, maybe. When you don't know something, then you sort of tend to not be a proponent of it. So
well, we're challenged by time.
Yeah.
We have to, but my whole thing is, as you discover some of these things, sometimes it does save you time.
Last question.
Yes.
Okay, we're okay. Women in technology, because it's just such a big topic, and just in terms of Cisco, are you seeing trends in getting more women engineers and or investing, seeing more women, consume the curriculum in parts of the world?
Well, what's really exciting about the networking academies is we're getting women in many places in Africa, in Arab countries, where they would have never had the opportunity to do so, and they're becoming some of our best students because when you have the passion and the desire and it meets an opportunity, that they're going to leverage it much more than someone who might take it for granted. So, and it's really changing dynamics of cultures. In some places, they become head of household earning money when difficult times, maybe their husbands are not. So we're really inspired by what the potential is. As I shared with you earlier, as a father of 3 daughters, I'm all for them having power. By the way, as you know, you folks are much smarter than me guys. I give you credit on that. They teach me everything I know.
Yeah, I was going to say you're in a family run by women.
Yeah, I even have a female dog. So
no wonder you're so fabulous and cool. I mean,
I learned. I'm well trained, as my wife has told me. It's taken 32 years of marriage, but she thinks I'm fine, almost there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This was great.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.